Joining me now to talk more about President Biden's status in the race is San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kimberly.
You have been steadfast in your support of the president, saying in the race, and you've made that clear in a statement about 3 days ago. Since then, the president met with 200 mayors looking for support amid the furor over his campaign. Are you still firmly supporting Biden in the race?
100% yes.
What would it take for you to change?
It would have to be performance. This is not a personal opinion, Kimberly. This is performance of the president over the last 3.5 years. As your mayor, I've interfaced with the president and his administration many, many times, and I can tell you that everything we've needed from our federal government, they've provided. Everything from relief during the COVID pandemic to the most recent FEMA designation for our floods from January 22nd. This president has had the backs of San Diegans, and so I'll have his back because I believe he's done an exceptional job as president. So this is not about personal opinion. This is about performance. The president has performed for San Diego, and I believe for the United States.
And I hear you talk a lot about the appreciation for the policies, but personally, what is your opinion if you've spent time with him and talked to him about his mental acuity now, next year, and 4 years from now?
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, I was a part of a group of mayors that spoke with the president earlier this week. I will tell you that I saw the same president that I know and have known for a few years now. He is an 81-year-old man, and he doesn't hide that. I'd like Joe Biden to be younger. I'm sure he would like to be younger. But the fact of the matter, Kimberly, is over a nearly hour-long phone call at night, President took our questions, answered them well, and I was more than satisfied that he's up to this job. So I understand that there was a bad debate performance. He was the first to admit that in our conversation. He took full responsibility, acknowledged that he needed to do better. I guess what I'm perplexed by, Kimberly, is one debate performance does not wipe out 3.5 years of exceptional leadership as our president. And it certainly stands in strong contrast to 34 felony convictions that the former president experienced. Yet, of course, no one's asking for him to drop out of the race. But Joe Biden has one bad debate and everyone says he needs to go. I respectfully disagree.
And on another level, as you know, Congresspeople Mike Levin as well as Scott Peters now in the last couple of days have come forward asking the president to step aside. You're not doing that. There are people, sources that we speak to within the administration and the Democratic Party that say some of the reason that some don't join the chorus is they don't want to burn a bridge. Is any part of this for you protecting your future place with the party or the White House?
No, ma'am. I mean, my place is here as your mayor, and I'm saying my support for President Biden is in that experience. He's delivered for San Diego, and I know let me take a step back. This is a unique election for Americans. This is the first time that I can think of that we have seen both men do the job previously. When I think about what President Trump did over 4 years, I think about chaos. I think about a pandemic that was completely botched. I think about an economy that was in the tank come 2020. And I look at Joe Biden's record of progress, of job creation, and of providing for cities and families and workers. It's just not even close. You can judge them on their experiences as president. One, I think, was a failed president. That's Donald Trump. Joe Biden has been very successful, and I don't see any reason to make a change. Yes, he is 81 years old. But Kimberly, as based on the conversation I had with him just a few days ago, I fully believe he can continue to do this job, and I hope he surely will. I believe Joe Biden being president of the United States come January 2025 is the best possible outcome for San Diego. One of these two men will be president. It'll be Donald Trump or it'll be Joe Biden. It is not close. It should be Joe Biden.
But polls in the swing states are not good for the president. Also concern what that does for the Dems in the House and the Senate. So as you go forward, you're not worried about a loss in November, both of the White House and the down ballots?
Well, of course, I worry about those things, but I'm really more concerned about that because the president's had to endure 2 weeks worth of negative press over a 90-minute debate performance. I think that has everything to do with what we're currently seeing in the polls. And the fact is, Kimberly, those polls are still extremely tight. Some of them show the president actually gaining some ground. But the fact that after 2 weeks of withering criticism by the media and by some politicians, the president still basically has a tie race with former President Trump, I think tells you that if we simply support our president and understand that under him we have grown our economy, we've created millions of jobs, and San Diego's better off, I believe Joe Biden will be successful in November, and Democrats will enjoy success in the House and the Senate races. I think this continual attack on our president by his own supporters is really problematic, because surely Donald Trump and his supporters are happy to see this happen. And unfortunately, for a lot of those folks who are criticizing the president, none of them have really said who precisely they would replace him with and whether or not that individual can defeat Donald Trump in November. I know that Joe Biden can, because he's done it before.
You mentioned 2 weeks. It's taking all the air out of the room. So let's talk about time. Can this still be going on 2 weeks from now, a month from now?
It shouldn't have lasted this long. It was one debate, Kimberly. If you had 3.5 years of what we saw for those 90 minutes of that debate, I would understand the situation we're currently in. But folks are piling on, and that's not helpful. The next week, you're going to see the Republican National Committee convene in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which, remember, that President Trump described as a terrible city. And I know my colleague, who's mayor of Milwaukee, did not appreciate that. I think you're going to see several days of disastrous policy reminders from what Donald Trump did to our country from 2016 to 2020. When that's put out on full display, I think the Americans will come around and understand the better choice is Joe Biden. We have a choice whether or not we're going to allow that to be the narrative next week, or if we're going to continue what we've done for the last 2 weeks, which is throw everything in the kitchen sink at our president, and yet he still stays tied with Donald Trump. My humble suggestion to all involved is to get behind the president and the vice president and make sure that we have a president and vice president come January who is familiar with the truth, who is a good and decent human being, who is not a convicted felon, and who did not lead an insurrection against the government and the Constitution he was sworn to protect. That person is Joe Biden.
Right. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.